Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for being here. We are super excited to be able to kick off our Scouting for Food campaign for this year. My name is Amanda Hugelman. I serve as our program director for Pathway to Adventure Council. And just before we get into the bulk of our presentation tonight, we can go over a couple quick housekeeping items. Next. We are recording this webinar. It will be posted to our Scouting for Food website. I hope to get it up tomorrow, if not by the end of the week. And that's pathwaytoadventure.org/SFF. And as we go through our presentation tonight, you can use the Q&A feature with the question mark there down at the bottom of your screen for questions. We will be keeping an eye on this. If there's anything immediate to address, we can take care of it as we go. Otherwise, questions will be saved for the end. Okay, to look forward over the next 30-45 minutes or so, I'll start with a quick introduction of the guest speakers that we have with us tonight. I'll provide some context of our Scouting for Food program, both here and as a larger program that Scouting does. We'll cover some dates to keep in mind, how to participate. And then our first guest speaker will go into a little bit more detail on how to plan and successfully carry out Scouting for Food participation, particularly from a pack mind experience. And then our second speaker will tell us about how these efforts really benefit our local pantries, our neighbors in need. And then we'll wrap up with questions. Just to give you a little bit of an idea of the expertise that we have with us on the call tonight, I'd like to introduce our guest speakers, Sonia and Michael. Sonia Martinez is a mom of 2 scouts. As that, she works as the service project coordinator for Pack 12, as well as the Scouting for Food lead for Pack 4. Sonia is a longtime volunteer and board member of the Westchester Food Pantry, and professionally, she is an IT product owner at a global company. We also have Michael Dieter with us, and he's a board member at Share Food, Share Love Food Pantry in Brookfield, Illinois. And at Share Food, Share Love, he oversees the outreach and development team. He's also a professor of education at Trinity Christian College. Thank you both. We are excited to have you here tonight. Okay, taking a half a step back. Scouting for Food is larger than Pathway to Adventure Council here in Chicagoland and Northwest Indiana. This program began in St. Louis in 1985 as a council-wide service project there, and then in 1988 became more nationally adopted as a scouting service opportunity. The typical Scouting for Food method is a 2-weekend approach. So on the first weekend, scouts are out in their neighborhoods delivering door hangers and grocery bags to let their neighbors know about the food drive. And then the second weekend, they're back to pick up the donations and deliver them to the food pantry, a food bank, somewhere where those donations can get to the neighbors in need. Scouting for Food is really an opportunity to practice values of community engagement and leadership development as scouts become aware of food insecurity and ways that they can address that with their pack, their troop, their families, their different community resources. And Scouting for Food, in different councils, this is done at different points of the year. Michael will cover this a little bit more in detail later, but in Pathway to Adventure Council, we focus on the springtime in April because pantries are typically at a greater need for resources to restock after Thanksgiving and other holiday food drives have been depleted. Next. So this is a bigger picture of the timeline here in Pathway to Adventure Council leading up to that April date. The important takeaway here is that this year, instead of us assigning 2 weekends that the campaign will take place over. Units can choose the dates that work best for them. We just ask that April is when you focus those efforts. And then in between now and then, it's really up uh, to the leaders in the unit, to the families, the scouts especially, what they're interested in doing, and how they would like that to look. You'll hear a little bit more later, but Scouting for Food is a pretty flexible project. If you want to do the 2 weekend canvassing efforts, you can do that, and you'll be able to request door hangers free of charge with your registration for Scouting for Food. And I have an example door hanger on the next slide that we'll look at in a couple minutes. Some units also will choose to collect donations in front of a grocery store or at their house of worship or another local business. And this sees success as well. Just keep in mind that there needs to be some level of approval from the manager or the pastor or otherwise. There's also the option to request monetary donations and provide that directly to the food pantry that you'll be benefiting. We want to highlight, though, whichever method that you take, it's important to identify early the food pantry that you'll be partnering with. Start conversations early about the best ways that your scouts can work with them, just to make sure that, yeah, the support is tailored to what that community resource really needs. And we'll hear more about this as well from our guest speakers. The last thing that I want to mention on this timeline is that after whatever method you choose, after you do that, there's a quick Google form that helps us know how many scouts were engaged, how many service hours they completed, and then how many resources in weight or number of items, what was collected and donated, just so we're able to showcase all of those efforts. And you can also order Scouting for Food patches at that point too. Okay, to support however you and your scouts choose to participate, we've got a range of resources that are hosted on this Pathway to Adventure /SFF, our Scouting for Food website. Well, I know for a fact that not everything is up there now. Over the next few weeks, keep an eye on this. And there will be a leader guide published shortly, which will have details that we go over tonight, but other things like safety guidelines to keep in mind when you and your scouts are out in the communities. We have sample social media messages to help promote your efforts, contact information as well. I want to mention that the Scouting for Food team on our side is supported by a group of volunteers that lend their time and their expertise, and they're able to be reached out to if you have questions in your particular area as well. On the right side of this page, this is an example. Oh, go back, Tim. Thank you. We're still adjusting some of our Scouting for Food branding, but this is our new door hanger that will be available when you register. Something that I want to point out this year is the opportunity to print some custom details on these door hangers. Instead of doing that on your own, we can do those in-house to highlight your unit information, when you plan on picking up donations, what pantry you're donating to, and then contact information in case there's a missed pickup. So just keep an eye on the website over the next couple weeks for these resources to help support your Scouting for Food efforts. Now you can go next. Before I hand it over to our guest speakers, just wanted to leave this graphic on the screen for a minute. as a way to kind of summarize and then introduce the different paths that your scouting for food participation might look. The main distinction that, again, that we're hoping to really encourage units to do is consider engaging early and intentionally with the food pantry that you will be working with and donating to, just to open up this longer term connection with the community resource outside of the two service weekends of going out into the community and going back to pick up those donations. So it's sort of, you have the opportunity to do what works best on the timeline and time scale based on capacity of your scouts and what's really needed in that community. And now Sonia's going to take it from here. She'll walk us through some of the finer details of organizing pack participation, and then Michael will share some context after Sonia on why this is really such a beneficial partnership.
Thank you, Amanda. All right. So as Amanda said, I am coming at you from the perspective of leading a troop or a pack through actually organizing this and doing this and walking with my scouts from door to door. If you can go back, thank you. So touching on what Amanda mentioned, the idea really is for or ideally, this would be a longer term relationship with your local food pantry. So that's the perspective we take it from. Now, understanding that, especially this year, if you're starting now, building that relationship will have to be a little bit maybe fast tracked or reduced for this year. So maybe this year, the leaders of your group would get in contact with your local pantry and either have a meeting on site or at least a phone call to start building that relationship. And then in future years, you can have the scouts actually visit the location as well. And I'll touch on some options about that at the end of my slides. So you're going to start with building that relationship and most importantly, making sure the pantry is aware what you're doing. They're aware of the dates you're looking at. Those dates work for them. Pantries love getting donations, but they also love knowing when those donations come so that they can plan for receiving those and then obviously shelving those donations. So they'll need to make sure that they have the capacity to receive those. So you will figure out the dates with them, and you will also figure out if there are any specific food items that they need. Sometimes pantries are particularly low on a specific item, and they'll mention that. Or if there are any food restrictions of items they can't receive. So for instance, if they don't have refrigeration, there are certain items they can't receive. And then you'll also confirm with them the method of the food that will be dropped off. I'll go into the different options there later on, but basically, bottom line, you're going to talk to your pantry and make a plan with them. If you can move to the next slide, Tim. So then after that, you'll start planning with your troop or pack. So you've decided on the dates with the pantry and you'll let your troop and pack know the 2 weekends. And again, over the years, you'll probably get into planning this earlier and earlier. So our feedback has been from parents that the earlier they can find or they can be made aware of those dates, the better. So we tried to do this at the beginning of the school year so that families can plan the 2 back-to-back weekends into their schedule. You'll also communicate the territory map and the sign up for routes with the parents, and I'll get to how those get created in just a short while. And you'll talk to the scouts of what to expect. So we generally encourage scouts to sign up in pairs for a route just because that's more fun. It's the buddy system, right? That's what the scouts do in many different capacities. So this is another way to practice that. And then you'll choose either a central location where the day of collection, the scouts will drop off the food. So we, for instance, set up a tent basically at a local church in the parking lot and collect the different bags. And then we have 3 shifts of parents drive the food to the food pantry. But I know that other troops or packs have done it that the individual scouts, when they're done with their route collecting the food, they'll just drive that to the pantry. So that is really something that you'll figure out with your group as well as with the food pantry to see what's going to work best. And then you'll start getting the word out about this. So ideally, you'll have some flyers that you can hang up around town, informing the community that the food drive is happening and encouraging them to be on the lookout for door hangers or just coming by the collection site on the day of the food drive. And if you have connections to schools or churches, local coffee shops, or other businesses, then you can ask them to hang up flyers as well. And then there's a bonus that Amanda mentioned as well that some scouts choose to do, which is talking to local businesses, especially supermarkets, for the scouts to set up a table there where they can collect food on site, which is particularly helpful for people who go shopping and then they see the scouts out there. And then when they come out, they can just drop off some food there. So that's an additional option for a group. If you can move to the next slide. Okay, so now really getting to figuring out where your scouts are going to walk. This is mainly a one-time activity that the first year you do this is going to take just a little bit of time, but it is well worth it because you'll basically you can recycle this in future years. So the first step is going to be for you to register your territory on the council website. The link is right there. And this is just to make sure that you are coordinating with other scout troops or packs that might be close to your neighborhood and making sure who's basically claiming that territory to go scouting for food. And then you'll create your own map. Now, everything or a lot of what I'm telling you tonight, I learned from a different pack that has been doing this for many years. And I think when they created their map, they actually did it by hand. So they just printed out a map and did this by hand. I chose to do this by going to Google Maps a couple of years ago and looking at the neighborhood. The idea is to split this up into different routes that are all pretty much the same length. So ideally 50 to 70 households. So I went into Google Maps, I zoomed in and counted houses. So that took some time, but like I said, we've been using that same map for several years now. And then you mark the different routes and then use those numbers to create a sign up for that. So we use Sign Up Genius. Obviously, each group can do whatever works for them. The Sign Up Genius has worked well for us. So we have 2 spots for each route, again, promoting the buddy system. And then just a tip is that if you do have parents driving the food to the pantry that day of collection, to also have parents sign up for those slots as well, so that you can make sure you've got people ready to do that. Next. All right, so the supplies that you'll need are pretty simple. Amanda showed the door hangers earlier. You have essentially 2 options, flyers or door hangers. Our group has used both. There are pros and cons to both that I'll go into. And you can certainly use the ones from the district that are pre-printed, or you can also decide to make your own. We've never done that, but there are also some pros to that. So with the door hanger, it's generally much easier, especially for smaller or younger scouts, to hang them on the doorknobs because they have the little hooks and they can just be hung. But although there's some room for personalization, there's not a ton of room. And then with the flyer, which is essentially a sheet of paper, there's more room to personalize, but the flyers either need to be put into a plastic bag or you need a rubber band to attach them to the doorknobs, which can be harder for younger scouts to just maneuver. So you know your group and you'll know what might work best for them. For the personalization, you'll definitely want to include, obviously, the date of collection, the collection time, or the additional drop-off location. You can add any specifics from the food pantry. So again, if they need specific foods or if there's anything that's prohibited. And what's nice also is if you add the scout's name, who's going around on that route, especially if it's on the block that they live, the neighbors might know them. And from experience, the neighbors will be more inclined to donate if they know that it's Jimmy from down the block that's hanging up the flyers. Next. Tim, if you can move to the next slide. Thank you. All right. So Amanda had already mentioned that it's the actual Scouting for Food is a 2-weekend activity. The first weekend, what we've done is on that Saturday, we will have the scouts pick up their door hangers or flyers, as well as a map of the route that they're walking on, just to make sure there's no confusion. And we then encourage the scouts to basically that same day start hanging up flyers, just so that they don't misplace them or they forget about it or something gets in the way. We encourage them to hang up the flyers or door hangers no earlier than a week before when they're going to collect the food so that people don't forget about it, but also do it no later than, in our case, Wednesday, so that people have time to go shopping for food. So that's the window we suggest for our scouts. And then the actual day of the collection, which you will coordinate with your food pantry. Our pantry happens to work well on Saturdays. I know some food pantries might prefer a Sunday donation drop-off. So that day, you will have the scouts go through the same route that they hung up the flyers and pick up the food. So the time will be printed on the door hangers or flyers. For what works for us is 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And the door hangers will tell the residents that they should just leave the food out in a plastic bag with the flyer attached on that Saturday, and the scouts will come to pick up the food. They then pick up the donations and, in our case, drop them off at that central location. And then we have 3 groups of parents drive them to the food pantry through the course of that morning. There are a couple of extra tips here that I'm not going to read off, but you can read at your own leisure. But there is one added bonus or extra bonus that I recommend, and that is for the scouts to also hand out thank you cards. And I do believe that the council has those available as a way when a scout picks up food just to show appreciation for the neighbor's participation. And again, on that thank you card, they can write their name. If they're really eager, they can write a little note just to start building that relationship within their own community as well. Next. All right, and then when you are on site collecting what's been donated, kind of looking ahead at what Amanda mentioned with reporting back how it went, you'll want to write down how many, we count in bags, how many bags were collected per route. And it's also nice to see that for over the course of a couple of years to see how, as the word gets out, as this becomes more regular, every April in your community, the scouts do this, people will catch on and you'll get more and more donations. So it's nice to see that growth. It's also a way if you wanted to do some sort of game for the kids to say you count how many bags were collected and then you mention it at the next meeting. There are different things you could do with that number, but it's good for your own understanding. And then, of course, you'll want to get feedback from the scouts to hear, did they hear anything from the neighbors? What went well? What would they suggest for next year? Because the next food drive is always around the corner and you can learn from what you did. Next. And then finally, leading into long-term community building and relationship building with your food pantry, and this is also nice because Michael will touch on some of these things, is how do you build that community and that connection for the scouts with the food pantry? The scouts are going to have fun running around from house to house. It's kind of like reverse trick-or-treating, right? But they also, it's so much more meaningful if they understand why they're doing this. So food insecurity is kind of a lofty concept to many kids, and especially depending on what neighborhood they live in, they may not understand that food insecurity really impacts every single neighborhood. Every zip code has community or has families that struggle with this. And building that relationship with your local pantry is going to help them understand how they can help their neighbors. So there are a couple of different ways that we've done this that I wanted to highlight just to give some ideas. So some can happen at the pantry, and then some can happen at a scout meeting or at a scout's house. So at the pantry, I have taken several scout groups, and this is especially fun for younger scouts, to tour the pantry. So of course, this is in collaboration with the pantry's leadership, They give a tour that's age appropriate and show and talk about what the pantry does and how it functions. I mentioned the walk-in freezer here because our pantry has one, and especially the scouts, I would say, from kindergarten to third grade, they absolutely love the walk-in freezer. And it's always a big highlight for them to experience that. Then there's, of course, volunteering with the scouts to sort food. This could be at the end of your own food drive. If you have capacity, that's even better. If you can have the scouts be on site and take the food out of the bags and sort it to help the food pantry. And then we have our food pantry has outreach events as well. So these are basically events to reach volunteers, donors, and clients. So this could be at a farmer's market or at a local festival where there's a little booth where the pantry will talk about what they do. And our scouts have manned those booths basically. And then for older scouts, we have also done volunteering at the pantry when the clients come to shop. So that is where they actually interact with the clients and they help them pick out their groceries. And this, from our experience, has been most impactful because they see that the people that use the resource are just normal human beings, our neighbors that they get to help. And then for ideas of what they can do at a scout meeting, again, talk to your local pantry. Our pantry has something called birthday bags. So clients that have a birthday in a given month will get a birthday bag that has ingredients for a cake. So it'll be cake mix and frosting and candles and maybe some decorations. And so what our scouts have done is they've come to a meeting, everybody has brought some of those ingredients, and then they actually pack the bags and donate those to the pantry. Or they can spend some time writing thank you cards. Our pantry is volunteer run, and so we try to do thank you cards to our volunteers every once in a while. And the scouts have written those, and it's always nice to get a handwritten note from a child on behalf of the pantry. And then again, for older scouts, turning this into a little bit more of an educational experience. There's an excellent documentary about food insecurity called A Place at the Table that we've watched with some older scouts. But I'm sure there are other resources that you could use for educational purposes. Again, putting this in a little bit of more context. And then finally, our pantry also has something called we call it Hello Neighbor campaign, where a scout would actually practice letter writing skills, reaching out, explaining to their neighbors on their block what the local food pantry does, why it's important, why they as a scout support them, and asking that neighbor to also support the pantry, either by volunteering or by donating. But most importantly, tying it back to talk to your local pantry and ask ways that you can help, because I am guaranteeing they will have suggestions. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here with us tonight, and also thank you to Amanda, Tim, and Sonia for the work contributing to this and the work that we do together and also by association as it relates to hunger and food insecurity. My name is Michael Dieter. I'm with the Share Food, Share Love Food Pantry in beautiful Brookfield, Illinois. I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the framing and why this work matters, particularly in this moment of the first quarter of 2026. It was mentioned earlier, I believe, by Amanda in our presentation that very often during the holidays there are significant donations to food pantries, which is incredible because we need the food around the holidays, and in the reality, we need the food all year round in order to meet the needs of our neighbors who are experiencing hunger and food insecurity. You may have seen a lot in the news this past year regarding SNAP payments and uncertainty and uncomfortability. I'm sure Sonia and others who volunteer at food pantries saw numbers going up and saw concern. I think it's very important when scouts or anyone is contributing to a greater good that they understand and have some of the messaging around what is happening, why is it happening, and folks just aren't gathering food and turning it in, but they're really learning. and growing in their understanding of themselves and the ways in which they can build capacity and affect their communities, both while they are scouts and then for the rest of their lives with their families and friends. And so I wanted to share a little bit of an update of some changes that are happening around SNAP. SNAP used to be called food stamps many decades ago. SNAP stands for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. And there are very significant changes that are coming to it that we have not seen in the state of Illinois since 2019 pre-COVID. I think that this is important for us to be aware of because it highlights the need that food pantries and in turn our neighbors are going to have, not just through a holiday season or for a 3 month season, but a kind of new perpetual need that we're in this current moment. Illinois pays SNAP benefits once per month between the 1st and the 20th. There's actually not a rhyme or reason behind the date that an individual applies for SNAP, determines when those monies are directly deposited. Beginning February 1st, 2026, so in just a couple of weeks, there's going to be a pretty significant change to who is eligible for that financial assistance in the state of Illinois. Currently and previously, since 2019, Illinois has had a statewide waiver of SNAP time limits for what are called able-bodied adults without dependents. This waiver is going to expire. It's not been granted by the federal government to continue. And so work requirements are going to return to eligibility for SNAP. What this means is that individuals who no longer can meet the new requirements will be limited to 3 months within one calendar year of SNAP assistance. Previously, many individuals who had an exemption to this, including veterans who were automatically granted one, will no longer have that if they cannot meet the new requirements for eligibility. Additionally, the age of dependence has been changed from 18 to 14. And so there are folks who have been able to utilize SNAP who've qualified for it, who are going to need to re-qualify for it, and who may not be eligible for it moving forward. What that means for us as organizations, both those that are collecting food and operating the places where folks are receiving food, is that it is very likely that the number of folks are going to increase, which is why it's incredibly perfect timing, the months that this work is being done in, both planning it now and executing it in early spring. The work requirement that's coming into play requires individuals who are aged 18 to 64 to work, participate in approved training or approved volunteering at least 80 hours per month in order to receive SNAP benefits. If an individual cannot prove that they're doing that, or they do not qualify with a specific disability that requires a medical note signed by a medical professional, they will no longer be eligible for continuing SNAP benefits, which would trigger that 3 month allowance within a calendar year. Tim, if you could hit next for me, please. Just a couple of other points related to that. There's a significant change coming for our neighbors and clients who are immigrants. Immigrants who have been granted humanitarian protections will no longer be eligible for SNAP benefits. That includes refugees, asylees, victims of human trafficking, and certain types of violence. And so the only immigrants who will remain eligible for SNAP are lawful permanent residents, Cuban and Haitian entrants, and individuals lawfully residing in the U.S. In accordance with the Compact of Free Association. The state of Illinois has put together a resource that please share with anyone in your life you know that might be experiencing food insecurity or at risk of that and needing assistance. That link I can also send out via email, and that's just meant to help individuals answer questions. It asks no identifiable information, but to help individuals understand what the new requirements, if they may be able to take advantage of SNAP benefits or not. Tim, if you could hit next for me. Thanks for that. And that sounds like a lot, and it sounds really heavy, and it is a lot to think about the ways in which those that we serve and those that we collect for and those that we hang door tags for are going through a moment where many of them might need more assistance. from us, those that are able to be in a position to assist them. And it's really in moments that partnerships like this really matter. To me, partnerships go beyond just dropping off the food. That's something at Share Food, Share Love that we're really passionate about. Maybe that's the educator in me, but I know the Westchester Pantry and other food pantries really don't just want to receive food, but we really want to educate individuals. And we really want to educate individuals not just on our current moment and the need that exists, but what they can do in their own lives and in their own community to address food insecurity. I was telling Tim previously, Share Food, Share Love started 10 years ago by individuals who wanted to do something about hunger. I really think when we move beyond food and we move toward meaningful partnerships where individuals learn about capacity and how people came together to do great things, there's an opportunity for the next generation of individuals who help their neighbors to really be born. Scouting for food dramatically impacts capacity at a pantry. Even pantries that receive food from the Greater Chicago Food Depository, which is incredible, sometimes that food is not enough to meet demands, not only around holidays, but also around different seasons of the year and different economic states that we might find ourselves in locally and nationally. The Thanksgiving Christmas season is incredibly busy, but this is not a busy season at the pantry. And what that means is it's also an incredible opportunity to reach out now and start building those relationships. Few things make me happier than at the food pantry when an organization reaches out and says, I'd really like to be involved beyond giving food. What are some ideas you have? Because we have a lot of ideas and we love sharing those. We've worked to speak with the youth on what it means to be a good neighbor with some of our younger volunteers. We've organized not just drives, but packing events related to feminine hygiene and laundry products and putting together food packets. And so, beyond providing food, a deeper partnership can really help raise awareness of issues around food insecurity, education on these issues, so our scouts and our volunteers are learning about the world around them and the ways they can impact it. And really, from a pantry perspective, can really establish volunteer pipelines that can be called on throughout the year. Because just as I told you that the holidays are very busy for giving food, the holidays are also very popular for individuals to volunteer. But there are entire seasons. I see Sonia smiling, particularly in the summer, when youth volunteerism isn't necessarily as high, and there's actually a lot of work to do. And the times when food is not in the pantry is when a lot of pantries do deep cleanings, reorganize, painting, refurbishment. And those are all ways that individuals can lend their gifts and their talents to participate in the operation of the pantry and the feeding of individuals. Tim, if you could hit next just one more time. And so pantries want to partner beyond drop off. It might not seem like a food pantry has the time or really wants to collaborate, put together an event, come in on a Sunday to give a tour to a group of people. But I can assure you, I know I speak for the ones on this call, that we really do want to partner on a deeper level because we see that as an investment in our mission, but also an investment in the community who will serve and be served. And so I'll echo what Sonia mentioned about pantry tours. Those are, oh, I think it went a couple little far. Pantry tours are indeed very popular, and we love running those and giving those. I think from a motivation perspective, it also helps individuals understand and see where the food is actually going to go. When I have groups in the pantry, I like to tell them if it's before a drive, that I ask them to pick up a can and understand that when they collect cans, that can is going to be put on the shelf. And the can that they're holding came from somebody else who had an impact on our pantry operations. I also don't think it's a bad thing to ask about volunteer experiences that include some programming. When we welcome groups to Share Food, Share Love, we like to do like a 15, 20-minute overview, depending on the age and the needs of the group, just explaining how many people are served, who do we serve, why do we serve, how did we come into existence, what are some of the challenges we face, really just kind of moving beyond getting out of the cars, giving the food, and getting back in the cars, but really helping individuals to leave with deeper knowledge about food insecurity and what they can do. and also longer term projects. And so sorting and distribution of food is great. We've had some of our volunteers attend outreach events with other volunteers at the food pantry to collect donations and to inform people about the pantry. And also, Eagle Scout project opportunities are an incredible opportunity to think beyond what else is needed to operate a food pantry. Really, our hope, and I can speak for Share Food, Share Love with this, we really want to create a place of learning about food insecurity and hunger and empowering people to be able to act on it, not just in organized ways together, but also individually, those that have gifts and talents to feel called to that. And so I really want to encourage you. I know Sonia mentioned this, reach out early. Many food pantries are entirely volunteer run and do not have paid staff. Things might move a little slower or a little more intentionally in that way, but that's a good thing. The earlier you can reach out, the more time is there is to schedule those tours and those off-hour experiences. And please don't be afraid to have an ask. Without your generous work and the work you're doing in meetings like this and out in the community, the food pantry, we wouldn't have the food to donate. And so please don't be afraid to have an ask of wanting a tour or a volunteer to hop on a Zoom with your troop. Any way that we can support you in supporting us, we want to be involved in that.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Sonia. We hope that you've got a better understanding now of how meaningful and impactful scouting for food is, and that it's easy to do, and that there are resources to help you do that. I'm going to check the Q&A for questions. I've seen a couple. In the meantime, Tim, will you go back a slide? This is, again, the website. Perfect. And no, one more forward. Yes. The email address here is our PTAC Scouting for Food email address for things that might come up after tonight's webinar. Okay, there was one earlier. The Scouting for Food registration form that is linked on the website is live. This is the one to use. We've already got one in there. Alan, outside of PTAC, is asking if their troop can participate in our efforts, or at least in these boundaries. Absolutely. Yeah, Alan, you can reach out to that email address and we can talk about what that might look like. But the more the merrier, yeah, for Scout participation. And appreciate you asking. Matt asks, are there metrics on how much Scouting for Food helps pantries? These would be great to share when advertising within the community. From council standpoint, we have, yeah, past metrics in terms of weight or number of items that were collected over the year of Scouting for Food. Michael, do you have perspective, or Sonia, on more specific numbers, metrics for at least Share Food, Share Love, or how we might consider yeah, providing some data like that?
Well, the question reads, are there metrics on how much SFF helps pantries? These would be great to share when advertising within the community.
So I'll speak for the Westchester Food Pantry. I don't have those numbers on hand, but I bet our executive director, who's amazing and a volunteer, can get those numbers for that pantry. I just don't have the numbers now, but there are several trips and packs that support the pantry year over year. So I'm sure she's got that tracked.
Yeah, I'm going to echo Sonia on the executive director, not to send it upstairs, but on the executive director having that information from the multitude of ways the scouts support.
I think that's probably a little more general, that the question is the impact that the pantries are having, not just the scouts, on the community. In other words, how many people are served, or what zip codes, or maybe there's some reflection of what the economic state of the community is, or something to that effect. So I don't know if that's what Matt was trying to get to.
Yeah, these are all things that we can continue to share in the leader guide that I mentioned that will be coming in the next week or so. There's sample messaging for putting on social media or printed. And yeah, I will perhaps be in touch more, Michael and Sonia, for any more specific things that I might be able to learn. Okay, I don't see more questions coming in. Give another minute to put any last thoughts into the Q&A. In the meantime, though, I want to say thank you again to Michael, Sonia, Tim, for taking your time to share the good work that you're doing and to help our scouts be able to get involved themselves as well. I want to say thank you to our Scouting for Food committee that's working behind the scenes to support local units, and most importantly, the scouts that will be out doing the work. And not seeing anything else in the Q&A, I think we'll wrap it up. As a reminder, this has been recorded and will be posted to the PTAC Scouting for Food website. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. And I hope you have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Thanks to everybody.